Yo, this is Big Boss, or at this point right now, you can call me security officer boss. I just wanted to do this quick update. You guys know of the previous videos I made of situations that happened here in Oakland just before the holiday. Matter of fact, last week, Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve on Wednesday, a security guard was shot. He was shot in the stomach. The security guard was contracted to watch over a news crew. As he's watching over the news crew, and they are covering one of the recent flash robberies, the guys actually shot this security guard, and the guard went to the hospital. I made another video about the status of the guard. He was released out the hospital. He seemed to be doing fine, but sadly, over the weekend, he has passed. Yeah, so I figured since I made two videos about it, about the original robbery and shooting, the second video, the update that he got out the hospital, when I found out that he died over the weekend, I figured I might as well just make one more video in closing. And to that point, the person, it's on the news or whatnot, but I admit I've been very busy, caught up in what I've been doing, and I haven't been following the news that closely to find out that even though he got released at the hospital on Thursday, he died over the weekend. It was actually my coworker on my night job who told me about that he had passed. Just come to find out, my coworker actually knew the guy, right? Small world. So with further ado, I'm gonna bring on my coworker, Officer Ox, Housing Officer Ox. We call him Ox. I'm gonna bring him on just so he can speak briefly about meeting the Officer Kevin Nishita. So without further introduction, here's my coworker, Officer Ox.
What's up, Big Boss?
What's up, sir? What's up, Mr. Ox? Yeah. Well, how you feeling? How you doing today?
Much better than I was last week. I'll tell you that right now.
I know, right? You were down for the count, man. You're looking well.
I had a common cold, and it knocked me out for about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Confirmed, just a cold.
Yeah, I know. You showed me. You screenshotted me your COVID results. Yeah, I swore up and down you had COVID, man. Yeah, this news is crazy though, man. This news is crazy about the security guards, man. Is anybody safe?
Well, I mean that's kind of why it hit home for me is that I had met Kevin in the past briefly. I mean, I knew of him.
Okay.
When I finished the police academy here in California in 2000, I was in the hiring process with the Oakland Housing Authority Police Department, and he was on Oakland Housing at the time.
Okay.
And then later on, he went to San Jose PD and then was working for Colma PD and retired as a sergeant with Colma PD in 2018. One of my side hustles is I do funeral processions on motorcycles.
Right.
So in the San Francisco Bay Area, a very common destination for us is Colma. Obviously, there are more dead people in Colma than live people. So we used to encounter Colma PD quite a bit. And so I'd encountered him in the past.
Okay. What type of person was he?
He was just, but I couldn't even tell you personality wise. When I met him, he was just a normal dude, treated us human, which can be uncommon sometimes in our line of work, as you well know.
Exactly. Many times, the police, they kind of shit on us, so to speak, the security. We there to help them out, but a lot of police doesn't treat us kindly. So that's good that you said that Officer Kevin, he treated security with respect.
Especially like where we work and we run the gamut. We have some officers that don't want anything to do with us, and we have other officers that treat us like we're one of them and professionals. And because we help them out so much, we deal with a lot of superfluous stuff that they don't have to deal with.
Right.
On our weekend crew knows that if we're calling, that means that's something that they have to deal with. We've taken care of all the small stuff for them, and so they don't have to worry about it. A city like Richmond and even Colma, they're so understaffed right now that they're having to rely on private security. Like crime's up 500% over the country, and police departments are being defunded and shrunk. So they have to rely on other groups out there, and that's been a boon for security.
Yeah.
Over the past even couple months, contracts are sky high. So this particular contract that Officer Nishita was working on, a company that I worked for in the past actually had a similar contract with
Okay.
Cron 4 News actually. So robberies are so common, ironically enough, covering the mass robberies that were happening. But
Yeah,
the
I know.
robberies for years have already been happening, especially in Oakland, where they will rob the news crews. They'll be doing live reports. People will run up, grab the cameras, and take off because those cameras are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands? I know they
Oh
worth
yeah,
tens of thousands.
at least tens of thousands.
Tens of
You're talking about
tens of thousands.
vans and multiple cameras and recording equipment and satellite dishes. And so when we had the contract, we were just riding around with the news crew. The thing about it is because of perception in the United States with people in uniform, they didn't want us in uniform. They wanted us in plain clothes. And for private security, even former cops, as even I am,
right?
They don't want us carrying firearms because they don't want the stigma.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. So do you believe that Officer Kevin, in this situation last week when he was contracted to watch over the Crown 4 News, he was out there as an unarmed guard?
I believe he would not. I don't know for a fact, but
right.
I believe he was unarmed. So like I said, in the past, when we had the contract, we were allowed to carry our batons, our pepper spray, and other equipment, as long as it was hidden in our pockets. They didn't want us carrying firearms.
Wow. Even though you're protecting a news crew with equipment that's worth tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands put it together in the hood.
Well,
stuff that's tens of thousands of dollars, no gun.
It all goes back to perception. People have this perception of people carrying guns that if you're carrying a gun, it's going to draw attention or draw the bad element to you.
Right.
I don't think they realize it's going to be there no matter how you're dressed.
Right.
In fact, probably what people expect, I mean, some of the contracts you work too, I mean, they just expect you to stand there and they think that you standing there is enough of a deterrent that it's not going to happen. But that's not
it helps. But you know what? It goes to the point, right? You never know, right? And everything is a gamut, right? It is. Everything is a gamut. It's a spectrum. Yes, if you have a competent looking, intimidating security guard dressed to the T, dressed to the nine, will it reduce some petty theft? Would it reduce some crime? Yes. But I think I told you, but was it 2 weeks ago? Where I was doing security at, I will not disclose where I was doing security at. The armored car guard came, got the bag of money, and left. People left from my site. We found out later. They left from my site, followed the armored car, and they hit the armored car at the next facility. And that guard had a gun, but these are 3 guys with a gun. And he had a gun. 3 guys with a gun. So, yes, it might reduce some, but if some people are really, really planning to do something, it is what it is.
Now take that uniformed professional look and put them in plain clothes. People don't know who you are. So even whatever you're going to prevent being in uniform, standing there looking professional, isn't going to happen when you're standing there plain clothes. Right. And it's just, and when I first started in law enforcement, actually in Colorado, before moving out here, obviously it was a different game because I came from a small town. My whole county had 5,000 people in it. So as a deputy sheriff in a small town, the level of crime that we're going to be dealing with, especially in the early 90s, just wasn't going to be what we're dealing with out here. But then when I started working security out here, it just changes. And then people just they have this movie idea of what security is. They see television and movies, and they think they have this perception that security guards can only observe and report. And that's you know me well enough to know. I mean, others don't, but that's why I avoid using the term security guard.
You hate that word. Someone calling you a security guard is like fighting words.
Yeah, because it doesn't, when you say security guard, people think of something else. It's the
Right.
difference between, if you go to McDonald's and you're learning to flip hamburgers, you're a cook. But if
Right.
you go work in a five-star restaurant, you're a chef.
It's
You're
the
doing the
same
same
thing.
job, you're still preparing food. What's the
Right.
difference? And to
Right.
me,
But you were saying like from your small town, from your hometown of barely 5,000 people, and in the 90s when you were there, working
yeah,
with dealing with the sheriff's department, everything, the level of crime you had there, even as working law enforcement or near law enforcement, is still was less than what being a security officer here in the big
right.
city.
So then, I mean, as coming as a deputy sheriff and then coming to California and working security, I've also been to the academy here in California. So, I mean, I've post qualified as a law enforcement officer. Then, when I started working in housing, actually, I was in the hiring process of the Oakland Housing Authority, which is where I'd first encountered Officer Nishita.
Right.
Like I said, just encountered him. I was in the hiring process of the Oakland Housing Authority Police Department and wound up going to San Francisco as a housing officer. So again, going from a small town, now we work for a private company, but we're wearing uniforms, we're wearing guns, we're trained, we're patrolling in low income neighborhoods where there's high crime, we're dealing with homicides, drugs, and guns. Uh, it's more than observe and report. We had to interact. We were making arrests. We were going to court and testifying on drug arrests, and the whole nine yards.
Right.
Again, just to illustrate the difference, where I see the difference between security guards and security officers. I even got into community outreach. That was a big part of what I did in San Francisco. 99% of the people that we deal with in low income neighborhoods are just normal, hardworking family people. They want to go to work, they want to come home, they want to sit and relax on the couch and have a beer and hang out with their friends and have dinner with the kids and move on about their business. They're just normal people. The criminal element that's out there, especially these kind that are doing all these robberies, that's like 1% of that population. So as an officer, if I'm focusing on that bad element,
Right.
if I'm on the street and I'm there and I'm in front of them, they're going to move down the street. They're going to do what they're
Yeah.
going to do. They're just going to do it
Right.
down the street.
Exactly.
But those
I
people,
always say when we zig, they zag.
exactly. And they're not gonna call up the mayor's office after that and say, hey, those housing officers, they did a great job moving us off the block.
No.
So I wanted to interact with those 99%. So getting into community outreach, we were doing food delivery. We had like 5-star meals. Actually, we were delivering chimichurri chicken and couscous and stuff like that. We were also doing job training programs. A lot of these cats that wanted to get off the street
Yeah.
didn't want to be in that life anymore. There aren't that many old OGs. If you live the life, you ain't gonna live to be that long.
Right.
So some of these folks, they had kids and they wanted to get out of life. They wanted to be normal. They just wanted to be people. And so we were doing job training programs with them, teaching them how to write resumes, doing job interviews, getting them summer jobs, even for the kids, 14, 15 years old.
Wow.
So to me, again, that's the difference between guards and officers. Guards are McDonald's cooks. I tend to think of myself as a chef,
Yeah.
or I try to at least. I try to be better, and that's the attitude we interact with our police department when we're working. Is
Right.
again, they know our training and background, and they're going to trust us. And when I call them, I don't have to sit and explain my resume. I don't have to go through my resume and say, "Well, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I know what I'm looking at, and here's why I can do it." They just say, "What do you got? Got it," and move on.
Wow.
So that's the biggest thing. And like I said, my interactions with Officer Nishita were of that nature. He was just an easygoing, laid back kind of guy. Doing funeral processions, I've seen him actually come out and we'd be blocking intersections. We'd have like 20, 30 cars and 2 bikes, and we're working hard to get those intersections blocked. He'd block an intersection for us and wave and then take off. So
that was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah.
But that just, again, that illustrates the difference between what we do and the perception of what we do.
Right. Unfortunately, yeah, the Hollywood perception of security is basically a bumbling buffoon with a pocket
The
full
door
of
rattler.
Huh?
The guy that the guys that rattles the doors and carries all the keys.
Yeah, exactly. And the reality is that because obviously we are not, well, some of us are, some are, but the majority of us are not actually police officers or peace officers, but we are a few steps below them and many times doing very similar jobs and responsibilities, even to the point sometimes they actually rely on us. Especially when you get into certain sections of security, like when you're dealing with housing or security on in federal buildings and federal places, or like I say, shipyards, or like what we do, housing. How, like, as you know, in the city that we work in the evenings, that local police basically leans on us and depends on us to help them out a lot of times. And so
That city we're working in, you have 12 beats that are being covered by 4 to 5 officers now. You have a whole city at night being covered by 4 or 5 people
that's called
because of
defund the police. Defund the police.
because of
Thank you. Right.
I think a lot of the I think a lot of what we deal with is the worst thing that ever happened to security, I think, is the movie Observe and Report, Friday, and
Mall
National
cop
Security,
and mall cop.
Mall Cop.
Yeah.
Because that's the perception, and that's not the reality.
No.
And I think that's also driven a lot of, because that's the perception. You got people within our industry that look that part because that's what they think it is. That they can come with the, jeans and t-shirts and baggy shirts, and they got a phone in their hand and that's it. They don't even bother to have any training. They're not even carrying pepper spray or anything. And then on the flip side of that, I mean, you've been doing it long enough too. I mean, you and I go back into San Francisco decades.
Right.
Police academy training and even firearm training. I'm wearing a vest, a badge, a uniform, a gun, baton, taser, handcuffs. I'm wearing the same tools and equipment as a police officer. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and talks like a duck, it's a duck most of the time. And that, because of those perceptions of those realities, then you look at why clients then only want to hire unarmed guards. And to be, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I think that's what got Officer Nishita killed. It was because of that perception. They didn't want that uniformed police-looking type because of the perception, and so they got a guy in plain clothes, and he got shot over it.
Right. And that's interesting because I wonder if they would have, that flash mob would have did the same thing if he was standing there dressed like a cop down to the T. I mean, head to toe, spit shine boots, full utility belt with the weapon, with the baton, with the handcuffs, with the mace, and and the bright yellow taser vest on. If he was standing there in that command presence, fully dressed like a police officer or a fully armed security officer, would the same thing happen? Versus just a man standing there in plain clothes.
There's a lot of what ifs there, but
right.
We all know that they would have at least questioned what they did.
Right.
They had to have. Because if you're a criminal element and you're gonna rob somebody, are you gonna take the hard target or the easy target? There's the little old lady standing there with a purse with $1,000 of cash in it, or there's the big dude that's 6'5" and muscular built. You're gonna take the little old lady because it's the easy target.
Right.
So a uniform.
If you're a bad guy. If you're a bad guy.
If you're a bad guy, yes. Obviously, if you're a bad guy. Absolutely. So I mean, a uniform presence standing there, maybe they would have thought something different.
Right.
Who knows? I believe they would have thought different. But that's, again, that's just my opinion.
Right. Right. Yeah. They might want to rethink that policy. To me, it's asinine. And like you say, would they allow, would they allow the person to be armed, like concealed, or they don't want to have it at all?
They didn't want the gun at all. They didn't want the gun at all because they believe that
you're just a target. You're just a target. Your ass hanging in the wind.
Again, because of that perception of security, they think a security guard with a gun is going to wig out at the smallest detail and pull out this gun and create an incident where instead of prevent one, because that's the public perception. We live in an anti-gun society.
Yes.
And anti-police, and so any talk of a gun is going to be oh my goodness. I worked in San Diego for a while, working at a hotel, many years ago, and because I had a firearm and I was permitted to use it, I worked nights on the desk and I used to carry my firearm exposed. It was perfectly legal, and a lot of people would look at me like, "Oh my God, why do you need a gun here?" Well, the point is, I don't need a gun because that keeps that element away.
Right.
I never had to use it because I could, and I never got robbed. Other hotels and stuff around us did, but because of that mentality and that perception, I mean, everything in our society boils down to perception. Everything boils down to perception,
Right.
and we live in a world now where perception is negative. And here's another statistic. I mean, you look at there's a program for law enforcement out there called Under 100, where they're trying to keep law enforcement deaths under 100 officers per year. On the flip side of that, over 200 security officers are killed every year.
Wow.
A lot of them are working nightclub security.
Yeah.
Kevin was working, Officer Nishita was working, a news crew. I mean, this man was retired. He was retired. He retired as a police officer in 2018. He wanted the easy gigs. This was supposed to be an easy gig.
Right.
You lost his life over it.
In the middle, in broad daylight, on a Wednesday.
Broad daylight. In the middle of town.
In the middle, yeah. Downtown Oakland, in the middle of town, broad daylight on a Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve, covering a news crew.
Which shows how brazen.
Get shot in the stomach.
Shows how brazen these people are too. They don't care. It's
not care.
The old perception is, the criminals are going to sneak around in the dark, and it's broad daylight now.
Wow. Yeah, broad daylight. Well, one thing it is, it's not being daylight now. The sun is going down. I don't want to keep you. I just wanted to touch on this briefly. Like I say, small world. Here it is. I covered it. And then come to find out that you at least met the officer years back. You personally met him years back in your line of work, doing funeral processions in Colma, and he was Colma PD where you met him.
And before that, Oakland Housing Authority.
The Housing Authority the first time where you actually met him, and you said that he was a genuinely nice and respectful guy. So, those are kind words. Rest in peace. Prayers for his family. Well, with that, sir, thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, big boss.
No worries. Any closing words?
No, thank you for your time, man. It's nice having a platform every once in a while to come out and get opinions out.
That's right. Well, we're gonna do this again. My main thing is travel, but right now, what pays the light bills around here and put food in my stomach is this. This is what pays the bills for now. And so hopefully I can survive. It's crazy out here, as you know. R.I.P. to Kevin. Nishita is crazy out here. So hopefully I can survive doing security long enough where I can do this YouTube full time. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for those.
You got it, man.
All right.
Appreciate it, Trip.
See you later.
Thank you, big boss. All right, bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Ox. That is Ox. Yeah, so that's just what it is. So like I said, Ox actually met the guy. Wow, imagine that. Small world. Had to get him on camera. Then, so that's what it is. About to sign off. Thank you guys for tuning in. Whoever did, like I said, I figured I made 2 videos about the guy. So now once I found out that he passed, I figured I at least had to make a 3rd and just wrap everything up. And so rest in peace to Officer Kevin Nishita. Prayers for his family. With that being said, Boss is going to sign out. Everyone be safe. Be safe out there no matter where you are, because anything can happen at any time. So just be aware of your surroundings and be safe. Take care of yourself. Peace.